Hey friends, in this video, I'll walk you through how to use formulas inside of clay.com so that you can finally learn every single use case of formulas, specifically using the 20 formula checklist that I use to train virtual assistants, clay operators, and everyone in between inside of our clay course, which is called Unlock Clay, and also inside of my agency, which is called B2B Boosted. So without further ado, let me walk you through the formulas and how you can finally master formulas so that you can train yourself and the rest of your team to be trusted inside of the clay sheets when using formulas. So this begs the question, what the hell are formulas in the first place? And if you're new to this, it's a free feature inside of Clay that helps you with data cleaning, saving credits, and formatting data so that you don't have to manually clean up every data cell. So for example, the way you can access formulas is if you click on Add Column inside of Clay, and you will see this formula button, and then you can give it an instruction. Some of the examples are on the right-hand side over here, and we will cover the 20 most common use cases inside of this video. If you want to just grab the guide with this video and all the instructions so you can test out the 20 formula checklist yourself with all the prompts that we use inside of our agency clean up data, all you need to do is go underneath the video, and if this is the video, underneath there will be a link over there that you can click on, and it will download you this lovely guide over here, which helps you to learn every single formula, to download some sample data, and also will give you some free clay training as well inside of that guide. So do grab it down below as well. Now let's jump into it. The first thing we need to talk about is the 3 most common types of formulas. The first type of formulas is called conditional formulas. So for example, let's say step 1 is to validate an email address. So if the email address is valid, we then want to have the second step done, which is researching the prospect. But we don't want to research a prospect if the person's email address is invalid. So the way to apply this conditional runs formula is for the next step, if the first step is wrong and if the first step disqualifies the prospect and shows that it's a bad fit, for example, if the status is invalid here, in the next step after it, in the next enrichment, we'll click on Edit Column, we'll scroll down to the very bottom, we'll click on Use AI, and we can say something like, only run if the status is valid. And this way, if the status is invalid, the column will not run. Magical, right? Anyways, let's move on to the next use case. The second use case is data formatting. So in this case, the example I'm going to give you is, let's imagine we're trying to reach out to the VP of marketing at ASOS.com, which is a huge e-commerce marketplace, and we want to reference the amount of website visitors that they're currently getting. Now, it will be very dodgy if we say something like this number, which we generated using this similar web or whichever enrichment we used here. And this is genuinely the number of website visitors that they got last month. But obviously, this is a huge amount of visitors. It sounds really weird, like if you just give them a random number like that. So in this case, we can just generate a formula and we can say, tell me how many million this is, and round it up to the nearest number. And this gives us 18. And then this makes it so much easier in the final output to then be able to add column, message, and then say something like this, right? Where we say, saw you have over this amount of visitors on your website every month, but how many of their emails do you capture? And then you can then transition into a pitch about how you help people to convert website visitors to captured emails, for example. And in this case here, you can see the final output that I just put together. And also on that note, notice how I clicked on add column and message. This is what you should be doing. So if you're not doing this, then apologies, you're probably not as advanced at Clay as you think you are. No offense, once again. Now, moving on, these are 2 most common use cases. The third use case is something similar to conditional formulas. It's basically called conditional outputs. So the way we'll use this is, let's say if we enrich a company over here and we enriched ASOS, and we can see that their employee count is 2,800. So in this case, we can click on Insert Right, we can click Formula and say something like, if employee count is over 2,000, say wonderful ICP fit, right? You know, it's a Monday morning, I'm really caffeinated, that's why you're probably getting some solid content here. And basically over here, we now use this conditional output to then to basically funnel the lead, qualify them, and to get formula to generate something to say, for example, this is a great fit or this is a bad fit. And then on the basis of that, when we then use an enrichment like instantly, so if we are to push a lead to instantly, we can say only run if, and then we can say something like this contains wonderful, and then we only push the great leads into the campaign. So that's why we call it conditional output, because it contributes to the end output, right? So now, by now, you probably are thinking, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's great that you have 3 use cases, but there are probably a lot more use cases than this. So how do I learn this? How do I train this to a Clay operator or to a virtual assistant of mine? How do I do this? And luckily for you, I spent tens of hours trying to figure this out. Actually, yesterday I had to re-record this video about 10 times. So by this time, I know for sure that you're going to very much improve the way that you use formulas, because right now I'm going to show you the 20 formula checklist, which will help us to achieve this personalized email copy using just formulas. So yes, we use some enrichments in the process, but for the most part, to get to every enrichment, we're just going to be super OCD about the use of formulas. So this is what we're going to generate. Hey, first name, this amount of months into your role, as this at this specific normalized name of a company with this specific normalized job title, blah, blah, blah. We will reference their past company name. We'll then give them a freebie. And then finally, at the bottom, we will also talk about the job that they're currently hiring for. And we will basically reference the specialty skill and the open role job title that they're hiring for. So, and for all of this to work, all you need to do is download this 20 formula checklist, which will basically, first of all, practice the data formatting. So this will be the first 6 steps of this exact checklist. And then after that, we'll practice some conditional formulas. After that, we'll practice some data formatting. And then finally, we'll practice some conditional output as well. So the idea behind this is this will train you on the use of formulas. And for each individual one of those, if you get stuck throughout, exclusive access to each individual prompt on the right-hand side over here that I've hidden for you, just because I think it's the right thing to do. I want you to try and figure this out for yourself. And the data that we're working with, the sample data for this task, is this data over here of some famous people that I had someone from my team collect. So all we have to do is click on File, Download, and click on CSV. And once again, if you're wondering where the hell this you can find this Google Sheet, it will be linked underneath the video if you click on this link over here. So what we'll then do is we'll go inside of the Clay table, we'll click on a new Clay table, we'll click on Actions, Import from CSV, and we'll drag and drop the file and just make sure to basically just create a bunch of columns. Data input would look something like this, and I really want to train you on the data cleaning process here. So the first thing that comes to mind is, can you see how it says T over here? That means that it's a text format for this data. And if you just click on the column, you should be able to scroll down to text, change it to URL, because obviously this way Clay would not mess things up and Clay will have a lot less bugs. So make sure you do that for any links inside of the Clay table. So we will click on URL. And over here we have the company name, the job title, and the full name of the person, right? So that's all the data that we have right now. And here is what we're going to do to the data. So the first step is to import the data from this import file over here into a new Clay table. We did that, so we can take that off. The next thing that we need to do is we need to clean up the first name so that Tim becomes Tim with like nice formatting, right? So if we look at this table here at the bottom, Tim is with a capital, and we need to tidy this up because obviously it would look like a typo if we emailed someone like that. So the way we'll tidy that up is we'll click on Add Column, we'll click on Formula, and we'll say if. We will say grab the first name from the full name and make sure that just the first letter is a capital letter. And then we'll click on Generate Formula. And hopefully, if I'm as smart as I think I am, and indeed this is the case over here, the full name with capitals becomes just a normalized first name over here. And we will now change this to first name. Also, one thing whilst we're talking about this, if you're using this first name for the final output, I very much recommend the use of curly brackets, because later down the line, when you click on Add Column and you draft the message, it makes it so much easier when you see something that pops up with the first name. So yeah, you can just pour a tiny bit more thought into it, because for example, in this case, we can generate this, and you could see it basically just, it was so much easier to select it that way, because a lot of the time, otherwise you'll have like first name, normalized first name, old, first name, new, it just gets confusing. So I very much recommend the use of like curly brackets over here. If you're using something for the final output inside the email, just put a curly bracket around it saves you a lot of scars throughout this clay building journey. And more than that, step 2, which is cleaning up the first name so that Tim becomes Tim. And then the next step is generating the full name from first name and last name. So in this case, we already have the full name, so we just want to separate it into first name and last name. Just rebranded this task to be split the full name into first name and last name. And in this case, we'll click on add column, we'll click on formula, and we'll say grab the last word from, and we'll say full name. And by the way, you can follow along with this task, because otherwise you'll be thinking like, what the hell is this guy doing if you're not following along? So make sure you're doing this at the same time. And over here, we'll rename this to be last name. And we already have the first name here. And obviously, we're not really going to be using the last name in the output, I don't think, unless we're not going to call out like Jakobsen in the output. So once again, we don't need to worry about that too much. So we've done that. And next thing we need to do, which is super cool, and this is how we find over 70% of email addresses of people, just through guessing their emails. And we can do this with a formula. By the way, I've got a separate video on that on this channel, so you can probably find it somewhere. I'll try and link it in the description down below. But in the meantime, let's just try to extract the email domain from the website. And what we mean by that is, let's say we have triggerfy.io. We want to just grab triggerfy.io. So the way we'll do that is we'll click on insert right formula, and we'll say grab the email domain from, and then website, and then we'll generate formula. And voila, it should just generate everything apart from www dots. So we may need to clean up this formula. And this is the master formula that I just came up with, which is basically grabbing the email domain and removing any sort of www, https, all of that. And once again, if you just opt into the guide underneath the video, I'll give you this exact prompt so that you don't need every single time to input this manually inside of the clay table. At that moment in time, you can click on output is correct. And what this will do is we'll call this email domains. Now, the magic in this is that since we have the full name of the person and we have the email domains, we can basically go one of two ways. The first way is we can feed it to the email finder tool, because all it needs is a full name and an email domain to guess the email of the person. Or alternatively, if we want to do this ourselves, I'll back myself to do this. I'll just click on formula again, and I'll just basically say first name at, and then the email domain. And then we'll click on generate formula. And to be totally honest, this should be able to generate us the actual email address of the person. Let me just make sure that the first name column is filled in though. And voila, you can see basically generated a bunch of email guesses. And once again, this costs us literally zero, nothing up to this point. So I'm just going to say this email guess 1. And I'm sure you'll surprise us if we even find one or two of them. So this time we'll click on add enrichments and we'll just say validate email. And in this case, I'm probably going to use Lead Magic because I get a bunch of credits for them, and continue to add fields status. And we'll basically save and run all of these rows. And the beauty of this is not only are you practicing formulas, you're also at the same time like picking up some tiny little niche hacks inside of the clay sheets. So let's just hope that at the very least a couple of them are correct. Wow, how mind-blowing is this? So out of 12 founders, we just guessed 9 of them just through applying formula. Magical, right? If I knew this, that's why I would have titled the actual, I would have titled this. And in this case, we already did the extracting of the email domain from the website, we guessed an email address. And the next thing that we want to do is say true if the job title is a CEO, and say false if the job title is not founder. Which once again, I don't know why you would want to do that, but it just teaches you formulas. And in this case, we have the job title over here. So on the right of that, we'll click on insert right. We'll basically copy and paste this, and then we'll just replace the job title with the job title we want to use. And then we'll say the job title again, job title, generate formula. And at this moment in time, it just gives us 2 trues because the rest are false, right? Which is not so good, but oh well, we can move on with our life. I'm sure we wouldn't remember this in 10 years' time. Next up, if the email is valid, we need to enrich the company. Right, so the way we'll do that, and this is just teaching us the conditional runs, we'll click on add enrichments. We will enrich the company. Once again, we don't want to be scammed by Clay's inbuilt enrichment, so we'll use the Lead Magic for this one. And then we have all the information that we need, the company domain, the social URL, all of that fancy stuff. And over here, we'll say only run if and then I think it was status is valid, generate formula, and you could see that we will only run if the email is valid. And in this case, let's say we just want the employee count, we'll get all of this data anyways. So we can tick off this action of the if email is valid, enrich the company. And now this is where it gets quite fun. So this is where we start using conditional formulas. And once again, a quick reminder, the conditional formulas is basically you say, if the last output was this, then do this now, right? So we found the employee count for some of them. The next step will be add column, formula, and we'll basically copy and paste this. If employee count is under 10 employees, say good fit is if employee count is over 10 employees, say bad fit. I just want to only work with smaller companies, and straight away basically just gives us bad fit, good fit. And of course it gave us bad fit over here because it couldn't find the company, which I mean is fine because yeah, that's absolutely fine. And we can rename this to ICB good or bad fit, question mark. And up to this point, we basically learned 8 out of 20 steps that we need inside of the formula checklist. So that's not too bad. And then if the company is good fit, we need to enrich the LinkedIn URL of the lead. The way we'll do that is we'll click on add enrichment. We'll type in enrich profile, I think it is, or enrich person. And over here, we'll click on that. And then at the very bottom, we only want to enrich them, only run if, and then we'll just basically say only run if is literally good fit, because if it's not a good fit, then screw that. What's the point, right? What's the point in life? That was a joke, obviously. And then, yeah, okay, at that moment in time, we'll do that. We basically will plug in all the data points about the person. In this case, it will just limit the amount of options. So I'm going to do it in reverse. I'm just going to do it only run if, well, which I know doesn't make any sense, is bad fit, because otherwise we wouldn't have much data to work with for the final email output. So I'm just going to reverse engineer it from here, save and run 12 rows. This just cost me 12 credits, and that's really annoying. I hate to spend credits, like you can tell, because my credits reset in like 2 weeks and I haven't really spent them. Gosh, okay, I'll have to live with that. Anyways, it will keep me up at night just thinking about that's 12 credits that I just lost on that enrichment. Okay, next up, we find the past company the person worked for. And this is where it gets really fun, because this is how, from that one data point, how we can then reference the past company that they worked at. Now, this one will be pretty tough because a lot of the time the people have a bunch of past companies. So how do you know where what the name of the real past company is? And the answer is quite straightforward. We will click on the person and we will find experiences. So we'll type in experience, and you can see this person has 11 experiences. That's 11 different jobs that the person held throughout their lifetime. At that moment in time, we can use this formula button over here, which says filter, find keywords, and more using formula. And we will basically, it will always give you this pre-built thing, which is replace this text with a formula you'd like to apply to the following list. And this is the formula that I'll use. So from, and then I'll select experience again. So from experience, find the first instance where is current is unchecked, then return the URL from that object. So now in normal terms, what this will do is it will find us the first instance where the person used to work at a company, but no longer works there. So this will find us the most recent company the person technically worked for. At this moment in time, we'll click on output is correct, say formula. And once again, we can tick the box here. The next thing we need to do is enrich this company. So because now that we have this URL, like past company URL, we now need to enrich it if that contains text. So we'll basically enrich the company again. We'll use Lead Magic for that. We're really going big on them today. So we'll use past company URL. And then, we'll leave this one blank. We'll probably past company URL. Okay, cool. So we'll just use that. Continue to add fields. And let's say we probably want to find just the company name so we can actually name drop them in the cold email. So we'll basically then save and run the 12 rows. And in this case, a lot of the time, out of these 7 accounts, 5 of them are correct. And to be honest, yes, you could use Clayagent and you would probably get 7 out of 7 correct or 6 out of 7 correct. But given that this costs us a fraction of a cent, this is probably my go-to way to do that. So in this case, I'll just say past company name not normalized. And this brings me very nicely to an extra point that I wanted to make later down the line. And that's the fact that you can normalize the company name, and it's completely free inside of Clay. And if you're not aware of this, you will click on Add Enrichment, you'll type in normalize company name, and then we'll normalize the past company name. So in case it sounds absolutely fine. So in this case over here, we're basically going to save and run the rows. Sound the same in this case, but a lot of the time, if this was like Lead Magic Ltd, it will become Lead Magic, which is pretty good. So at this moment in time, we enrich the past company, we normalize the past company. Now it says reference the past company name in the outreach copy. So what we'll do is there will be outreach copy at the bottom here. And what I want you to do is copy and paste it into the Clay table. Click on Add Column, click on Message, and basically copy and paste this. And now we'll slowly start replacing the variables. So we'll say, hey, first name. And once again, we can't do these ones just yet. And then I'm sure back in and then over here, we can put a past company name, past company normalized name. And in case I just played around with the variables, so far we found just 2 out of the many that we want to find. But either way, that's absolutely fine, because remember, the point of this is just to practice formula. And next up, we already referenced the past company name in the outreach copy, and we want to find the start date and the end dates of the person working at this current company. This is actually quite exciting. So the way we'll do that is we'll click on most likely the actual data over here for the person. And if we click on experience again, and if we click on experiences, take action on list, find, filter, whatever, like that thing again, and we'll say, tell me the start date of the experience from. And basically you can generate this long formula over here, and then it will give us the starting date of when the person started working at this past company. But in this case, I just completely forgot that we want to basically see when the person started working at their current company. So in this case, we'll basically click on generate URL again, and we're going to just generate when the person started working at their latest company. So for example, when did I start working at Unlock Clay? And in this case, we can do this manually by basically going into the experience section rather, because I think that's a lot easier. And then we can just basically find, let's say this guy started working at Vayner X, and we can find the start date over here, which is 2009, right? So start date of recent job. And we can click on create column. And what we can then do is basically click on insert right formula and say something like, how many months is it between, and then this random start date and March 2025. And then it will generate us the amount of months, and then we can say, and round it up to the nearest year. So in this case, 16 years, 2 years, and so on. So what we can then do is in the final output over here, instead of the number of months, we can say the number of years, and then just say, this number of years since you started your company as this job title, and I'm sure you can relate to blah, blah, blah. So the idea here is we can basically manually go and find how long they've been in a role for. We can use formulas to find the exact dates that they started, how long they've been in the role for in years and in months, and we can reference that in the final output. And then after that, we can round up the time to the nearest year. That's something that we've done. On top of that, we could grab the specialty skill from job description and reference the specialty skill and open role title. To be totally honest, I'll remove it from this checklist because I don't think it's particularly useful because this was like specifically for that. Let's just generate a final email copy because to be totally honest, it's a Monday morning and I need to get on with my life after this. And the final thing that we need to do is we need to normalize the job title. And in this case, I'm just going to keep the job title as it is because I think I can live with that. The only thing we need to finally do is normalize the actual company name. And the way we'll do that is similarly to before. Inside of formulas here, we'll click on add enrichment. We'll type in normalize company name. and then we'll just type in the company name right now, and then hopefully we'll normalize it, save and run, and we'll just say company name final, right? And at that moment in time, this is what the final template would look like after we put in the final normalized company name. And this is how you basically use formulas in order to generate this type of personalized emails. And hopefully what this video taught you is the process behind using formulas every step of the way. And the final thing to keep in mind here is we need to push it into different campaigns. So what I mean by that is we can click on add enrichments and we can type in smart lead, add lead to campaign. And let's say we want to push people into this campaign only if they are a good ICP. So we'll say only run if ICP contains good, generate formula, and voila, only 2 people will qualify from this list for our ICP, right? So that's what I mean by using formulas effectively. Hopefully this 20 formula checklist would be useful for you to train your team, because you can literally give them this Google Sheet and be like, hey, work with this sample data import and try and do every step of this process. And if you get stuck, I'll send you a link to this exact template so you can look for yourself at all the different formulas that I'm using throughout that. So you should find that at the bottom of the Clay template here. Now, if you found this video useful, if you watched it this far, do give it a like, do subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. And of course, if you're not inside Unlock Clay already, then what are you doing with your life? Honestly, get inside unlockclay.com. It's basically a course that teaches you from start to finish how to use Clay. It only costs £100. It includes a 30-day money-back guarantee. We also have a similar course specifically for recruiters. So if you either service recruiters and you build systems for recruiters, or if you're a recruiter yourself, by all means, you're not exactly spoiled for choice. This is the best and the only Clay course for staffing agencies and for recruiters out there. So if you want to become a Clay-powered recruiter, it literally takes one button and it takes you to this checkout. This course is £200, the other course is £100. And once again, both include a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to take me up on that, that's great. If not, I'll see you in the next video regardless. So over and out, have a good one, and make sure to download the guide, which will be linked right underneath the video over here. Cheers, all the best. And do drop a comment down below if you find anything confusing or any other topics that you want me to go on this channel. Cheers.